Ever hopped into a seemingly pristine pool only to emerge with, like, itchy skin and red eyes? That's a telltale sign of a pool chemistry imbalance, and it's way more than just tossing in some chlorine and hoping for the best.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like trying to bake a cake without a recipe. You might end up with something, but
Probably not going to win any prizes.
exactly.
So, speaking of recipes, we're diving deep into the Pool Chemistry Booklet June 2019 Red.PDF today. And trust me, this isn't your basic chlorine 101.
Absolutely not. This booklet's all about empowering pool owners, giving them the knowledge to really take control.
No more blindly following instructions. I like it.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Exactly. So, first things first, this booklet's big on regular testing, but why is that so crucial? If the water looks clear, we're good, right?
See, that's where things get tricky. Clear water doesn't automatically mean clean and balanced water.
Okay, so we're talking about more than just aesthetics here.
Way more. It's about health, safety. It's like a checkup for your pool, making sure everything's running smoothly.
So we avoid those itchy eyes and skin irritations we talked about.
Exactly. Plus, you sidestep all those nasty bacteria and contaminants that can hide beneath the surface.
Ugh, like what kind of contaminants are we talking about?
We're talking about ear infections, stomach bugs, even respiratory problems.
No thanks. Not exactly inviting. And I'm guessing skipping testing is also bad news for the pool itself.
Oh, absolutely. Think corrosion, scaling, damage to your surfaces and equipment. Basically, a recipe for expensive headaches.
So regular testing is our preventative care routine.
Exactly.
And this booklet is our guide to understanding what each test means. Speaking of tests, can we start with the MVP chlorine?
Chlorine, the guardian of the pool. But here's the thing. Not all chlorine is created equal. We have to differentiate between free chlorine and combined chlorine.
Free chlorine versus combined chlorine. Okay, break that down for me.
So free chlorine, that's your active warrior, busy neutralizing those bad guys. Combined chlorine, that's what's left after the battle, formed when chlorine reacts with contaminants.
So it's like the difference between a fresh soldier and one who's already seen some action.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. High combined chlorine can actually make your pool less sanitary, even if your total chlorine seems fine.
Really? How so?
It's often a sign you need to shock your pool, superchlorinate it to break down those combined chlorine compounds and restore that sanitizing power.
Wow, a chlorine power struggle. So high free chlorine, low combined chlorine. Got it. Now, what about alternatives? Some people are a bit sensitive to chlorine, right?
You're right, bromine's a good one, especially for hotter tubs. Gentler on the skin and doesn't evaporate as quickly.
That's why my skin always feels softer after a hot tub session. Makes sense. What about other options beyond chlorine and bromine? Anything else out there?
You've got PHMB, often used with hydrogen peroxide. It's gentler, so a good option for sensitive folks.
Interesting. What about those fancy UV and ozone systems I keep hearing about? Are those legit?
Oh, they're great. They use different wavelengths of light or ozone gas to zap those pathogens.
Sounds pretty high tech.
It is. And the beauty is they can dramatically reduce the amount of chlorine or bromine you need.
So gentler water, fewer chemical byproducts.
Exactly.
I'm already seeing how it all ties together.
Look at puzzle, right?
Totally.
And to keep those pieces fitting snugly, we need to talk about pH.
Okay, pH, the grand conductor of our pool's orchestra or something like that, right?
That's a good one.
But honestly, what pH does has always been a bit of a mystery to me.
You and everyone else.
Mhm.
Think of pH as it measures how acidic or basic your water is. Scale of 0 to 14. 7 is neutral, below that is acidic, above is basic or alkaline.
Okay, so why does it matter in the grand scheme of my pool?
Well, if your pH is off, it can really mess things up.
What kind of mess are we talking about?
Well, for starters, it directly affects how well your chlorine works. Too high, and your chlorine's basically on vacation. It's there, but not really working.
Okay, so pH too high, chlorine goes on holiday. Got it. What about too low?
Too low, and your chlorine goes into overdrive. That strong chlorine smell, the irritation, that's pH too low.
So it's all about balance. Not too high, not too low. What's the sweet spot for pH?
Most experts say between 7.2 and 7.6. Keeps your chlorine happy, prevents corrosion, and is gentle on your skin.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion here. pH is at the center of it all.
Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, pH levels can change based on all sorts of things. Bather load, rain, even the type of chlorine you're using.
So regular testing is crucial for keeping those pH levels in check. I'm starting to feel like a pool detective. But what happens when things go a bit haywire, like, say, a sudden downpour or a bunch of kids doing cannonballs? That's got to mess with our perfectly balanced pH, right?
Oh, absolutely. Those pool parties can be brutal on pH, and that's where total alkalinity swoops in to save the day.
Total alkalinity.
Think of it as a buffer, like a big comfy cushion for your pool's pH.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about total alkalinity. So last time we were talking about total alkalinity being like the superhero of pH stability.
It's like a bodyguard for your pH rate.
Exactly. How does it actually work?
Think of it this way. When something throws your pH off rain, swimmers, whatever total alkalinity swoops in and absorbs the blow, it prevents those wild swings that can really mess with your pool chemistry.
Okay, so it keeps everything nice and stable. What's the ideal range for total alkalinity?
Shoot for between 80 and 120 parts per million. That sweet spot helps prevent those pH fluctuations and keeps your water clear and your chlorine working.
Awesome. So we've got our chlorine warriors, pH is the conductor, and total alkalinity as the stage manager, keeping everything in harmony. But what about cyanuric acid? Is that another player in this pool orchestra?
Oh, absolutely. Cyanuric acid is like sunscreen for your chlorine.
Sunscreen.
Yeah, especially for outdoor pools. See, chlorine breaks down in sunlight, UV light specifically.
Ugh.
Cyanuric acid protects it, forms a bond that shields it from those harmful rays.
So it helps the chlorine last longer.
Exactly. And a little goes a long way. Aim for a level between 30 and 50 parts per million for outdoor pools. Too little and your chlorine gets fried. Too much, and it can't do its job effectively. Balance is key.
Always with the balance. I'm starting to see a theme here. We've covered the sanitation crew and pH control, but what about the water itself? Are there things we need to watch out for there?
Great question. We can't forget about the water itself. One of the biggies is calcium hardness.
Okay, calcium hardness. That one always throws me off a bit. It's how much calcium is in the water, right? But why does it matter?
Think of it like this. Your pool water needs calcium, just like our bones do. If the calcium hardness is too low, the water gets, well, aggressive. It starts pulling calcium from anything it can find.
So it'll start eating away at my pool.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Etching, staining, damaging your plaster, your tiles. It can get expensive.
Yikes. So low calcium hardness equals a hungry pool. What about the opposite? Too much calcium.
That's when you get scaling. You know those crusty deposits on your shower head?
Don't remind me. Those are the worst to clean.
Same thing can happen in your pool. Makes the water feel rough, can damage the finish. Not good.
Definitely not the spa experience I'm going for.
Right. Most people recommend a calcium hardness level between 200 and 400 parts per million. Protects against both corrosion and scaling.
Okay, so another Goldilocks situation. We've got calcium hardness covered. Anything else lurking in our pool water that we need to be aware of?
Don't forget about phosphates.
Phosphates. Now, those don't sound quite as scary as corrosive water or scaling.
They might not sound scary, but they can wreak havoc on your pool's clarity.
Really? How so?
Think of phosphates as algae food.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're like rocket fuel for those little green invaders. High phosphates mean a green pool.
Definitely not the kind of green we want.
Well,
So how do we keep phosphates in check?
testing, of course. You can get phosphate test kits. Ideally, you want to keep them below 100 parts per billion.
Okay, so phosphate patrol it is.
Exactly. And there are phosphate-removing products out there if you need them.
Good to know. This deep dive is seriously arming me with so much pool knowledge.
I love it.
I feel much more confident about taking control of my pool's chemistry now.
That's what we like to hear. And speaking of taking control, remember all those different testing methods we talked about?
Yeah, the test strips, the color-changing ones. What were those called again?
The colorimetric tests.
Right, right. And the fancy digital ones, the photometers.
Exactly. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
Okay, I like that. So walk me through it. Like, when would you use which one?
Sure. So, say you just want a quick snapshot of how your pool's doing free chlorine pH. That's where those test strips come in.
Easy peasy.
Exactly. They're cheap, they're convenient, good for a quick check.
Like a quick dip in the pool of knowledge.
Exactly. But if you're ready to level up, those colorimetric tests are a great next step.
Those are the ones where you compare the color to a chart, right?
Exactly. Use a liquid or a tablet, it reacts with the water, and the color tells you the concentration.
So it's a bit more precise than those test strips.
Exactly. And then you have those high-tech photometers.
Yeah.
This is the top of the line.
The big guns.
If you want the most accurate, most detailed analysis, that's the way to go.
So we were talking about those photometers, the top of the line, cool testing tech. But for the average pool owner, are they really worth the investment?
Good question. I mean, they are an investment, but They give you a level of accuracy that you just can't get with those other methods.
Okay, so it's about like really fine-tuning things.
Exactly. You can spot those tiny imbalances before they become big problems. Plus, you can track those changes over time, really get to know your pool.
It's like having a fitness tracker, but for your pool.
I like that.
So what makes photometers so much more accurate? I get that they're digital, but
It's more than just being digital. See, with test strips and even those colorimetric tests, you're relying on your eyes to judge colors.
true, and my eyes aren't always reliable.
Right. Lighting can be different. Maybe you see colors a bit differently than someone else. A photometer takes all that guesswork out of it.
How so?
It uses light and a sensor to actually measure how much light passes through your water sample.
Okay, but how does that translate into, like, telling me what's in my pool water?
It converts those light readings into numbers, hard data.
Hmm.
You get a digital readout, often down to the decimal point, so you know exactly what's going on.
Wow, so much more precise. So I'm guessing those precise measurements are important for a reason.
Absolutely. When you're dealing with chemicals, even small imbalances can have big consequences. A photometer lets you make those tiny adjustments that keep everything running smoothly.
So photometers, they're on my radar now. But no matter what we're using to test our water, this booklet is big on doing it right. What are some common mistakes people make?
Oh yeah, there are definitely some pitfalls to watch out for. One thing the booklet really emphasizes is treating your testing equipment with respect.
Makes sense. We're basically doing science experiments here, right?
Exactly. So first and foremost, cleanliness is key. Wash and dry everything thoroughly. Don't let those test tubes and droppers get contaminated.
Good hygiene check. What about those tablets for the colorimetric tests?
Don't touch those with your bare hands. The oils on your skin can throw off the results. Use clean, dry hands, or even better, tongs.
Tongs, got it. And what about those expiration dates on the reagents? Are those really important?
Absolutely. Expired chemicals are useless. They won't give you accurate results. It's like trying to bake a cake with expired baking powder. It's just not going to work.
Okay, expired reagents, out they go. Anything else to keep in mind with the colorimetric tests? Those color changes can be a bit subtle sometimes.
Yeah, they can be. The booklet recommends using a white background when you're comparing the colors.
Oh, that's a good tip. Makes those colors pop more.
Exactly. And natural light is your friend. It helps illuminate those subtle differences.
Got it. Natural light, white background, like a little poolside photo studio.
Exactly. And what about those times when the color changes, like, off the chart?
Oh, yeah, like it's so intense it practically glows in the dark. What does that even mean?
That usually means the concentration is too high for the test to measure accurately.
So what do you do?
You dilute it, take a little bit of your pool water, mix it with distilled water. The booklet recommends a 1.1 ratio.
So you're basically watering down your pool water.
In a way, yeah. It brings the concentration down to a measurable range.
Clever.
And then, of course, you have to account for that dilution when you calculate the actual concentration.
A little pool math.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered test strips, colorimetric tests, and photometers. Any final words of wisdom from this treasure trove of a booklet?
You know, the biggest takeaway for me is that pool chemistry is always changing.
Right. It's not a one and done kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a process, and there are so many factors involved. Temperature, sunlight, how many people are in the pool. So don't panic if things aren't perfect right away.
Don't freak out over a single test result.
Exactly. Look for trends, make adjustments gradually, and don't be afraid to call in a professional if you need help.
The pool whisperers.
That's them.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like I could write my own pool chemistry guide now, almost.
You're well on your way.
Thanks for joining me on this journey into the fascinating world of pool chemistry. Until next time, happy swimming.